Thank you, Alliances, for putting on this show today, and to the Human Rights Commission as well. It's a great opportunity, I think, and it's even better because the Office for Women didn't have to organise it. So for that, we're eternally grateful. We take note of the what you said about the pre-departure briefing. I just have to say this year there was a lot of different processes we had to go through to get approvals for the delegation, for funding, for a whole range of things because of a change of government. And we actually did run out of time for that pre-departure briefing. But, you know, I think in a way we worked better and more closely on the ground in New York as a result. And certainly with Susan and Julie there, very effective delegates, even although it was a reduced number. And I do want to thank the NGOs from Australia for pestering the government and for giving us ideas and for accepting when we can't accept their ideas. I do think the government delegation and the government listens to the non-government delegates. I think we have a really good model that we try to actually sell to other countries too. And I just hope that this model will be sustained going forward. So in short, I think we feel that on balance, we got a really pretty solid outcome. One of the things that was mentioned there, I think, by Girl Guides was the references to girls in the text. And actually, Australia proposed the formulation that was subsequently adopted in the agreed conclusions, referring to gender equality in the post-2015 development framework as gender equality, women's empowerment, and women and girls' human rights. So that was picked up, and we were very pleased about that, and was utilised as a sort of standard formulation throughout the agreed conclusions. So that's pretty good. Other areas that we were particularly pleased with: prevention of violence against women, peace and security. The relevant resolutions were all recalled. Sometimes there's a bit of angst about those things. Some strong language on unpaid care work for the first time, recognising women and girls' disproportionate share of unpaid care. Some good language on women's economic security and workforce participation, and women's access to resources, including finance and markets. It was good to see that the agreed conclusions recognise that some women experience increased vulnerability and marginalisation due to the multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination. So we had an inclusion of a standalone paragraph on women and girls with disabilities and Indigenous women. Those are priorities for the Australian government and have been since I've been going to CSW, and hopefully will continue. So, one interesting thing from our Pacific colleagues who were, again, are getting increasingly active during the agreed conclusions and at CSW generally, which is really encouraging, I think. They managed to get recognition of women's contribution in sort of fisheries as an economics and a sector, and the role that women play in the care of oceans and environmental issues. Those were very important for the Pacific region, and it's a really good success for them to get that sort of language in. The recognition of the role of women human rights defenders, ensuring men and boys are fully engaged in addressing gender inequality, and so on. But, and this is to address, I think, one of the questions, we can't rest on our laurels here. References to state sovereignty were fended off, and state sovereignty basically gives states the out to actually do anything about what's in the agreed conclusions. Now, that was a considerable issue last year at CSW 57, and this year again there was another sort of late attack, if you like, on that issue. And which was fended off by resorting back to the CSW 57 language. And that is an ongoing concern, and I think will be pretty significant next year. The other issue I want to touch on is that of the family. We weren't as successful, I think, in the language we would have liked in this regard. So I think what we propose is family in all its diversity. That is strenuously rejected by a whole range of countries, which won't be named. So language from Beijing wasn't able to be secured in this area. That's an extreme threat again, and this is going to be, these issues are going to be mega next year. Sexual and reproductive health rights, we managed to get language in, but again, subject to the caveats that were agreed in CSW 57, so in accordance with certain other outcomes from other fora. On the sexual and reproductive health and rights, the Holy See and Malta reserved their position publicly on that, so we can sort of make reference to that. Also, as I think as somebody else mentioned, sexual orientation and gender identity. This was omitted from the final text, the language on this, but for governments that wanted language on sexual orientation and gender identity, a reference to marginalised women includes a sort of, I guess, an illusionary reference, and is seen as incorporating lesbians and discrimination against women and lesbians on the basis of sex, or sex orientation and gender identity. I think those are the key issues for me, and I'm sure Julie will have other issues that she would like to mention. On balance, a success. Lots still to be concerned about, and on guard for next year, I think, is my summing up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.